Hello, Channel Automation podcast listeners. Welcome back to another deep dive into the techniques that convert leads. I'm your host, Casey Arias, and today I am joined by the Mr. Vic Sun, back again to speak directly to conversion in the home improvement industry. Our theme for the day is top 10 things companies should be doing, but they aren't. So thank you very much for joining me today. I know you got a really busy schedule, but I'm happy to have you.
Oh, thanks, Casey. Yeah, we're very excited for this one. Yeah. We're going to have some really exciting stuff here. So listen until the end.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And also, if you are listening in the beginning, just also make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. May as well throw that in early, right? All right. So how should companies be obtaining their leads? That's the first thing I want to throw at you. I know a lot of people are buying lead lists. Is that the way to go?
Yeah, I mean, you'll never be able to just escape that. I think you should have both organic and paid. And I think with regards to the world we live in now, it's easier to identify those ideal customer profiles or ICPs, which ChatGPT, and especially with the new updates that it has, you can run, through natural language processing and kind of get feedback as well as support as to who your audiences are. And I think that's one thing that, many companies aren't really leveraging. And I think I'd want to talk about more on how AI is going to really help, machine learning really is going to help with, generation of interest, consideration, awareness, as well as conversion, at least for this podcast.
Oh yeah, don't worry. I know that you're very anxious to get into like the nitty-gritty of it, but we're going to lead up there. We're going to start with how we're going to be getting leads, and then we're going to go all the way to the end for reviews. So let's talk about what is usually the main contributor to a low conversion rate. Is it low intent leads? Is it poor content being sent? Is it the content center's team motivation, or is it something else, or a combination of it?
I think it's a combination of it. Most companies will attribute things to one or two things, but really it's a myriad of things. So the thing that to consider in this day and age is that straight line attribution is really only used, I think, mostly for the boardroom or for internal assessment, right? But when you're really looking at understanding, your audience and figuring out what things affect your audience's people, right? Having only one thing or two things in there as your elements really means that you should consider expanding all these elements and figuring out, and asking why, as opposed to, coming up with your own conclusions. Many times, companies will be too short-sighted in those things. They end up going and say, well, it's the lead source that sucks. And then you ask questions. So you have to be curious about these things and go and figure out, okay, well, what affects the conversion? Well, one, the lead source, yes. But what are the intents for those leads and that lead source? And many companies don't even know what those things are. So I think it's really good that you can leverage, AI now. Through our system, we're able to go and determine those intents. We basically identify them, right? It could be things like language, region, interest, credit score, what the words that they use, pictures that they provide, what type of the lead went into what type of website or URL. So with our partnerships with Active Prospect and Finexa and enhanced data being collected, you can identify intents and then create your audience segments better. And then from there, you can now identify, okay, how do I go and attack each one, or how do I go and communicate with each one of these audience segments? And again, it kind of goes down that rabbit hole. What's interesting is maybe you could shed light on this is what scares people. Is it the unknown, which is, I think most people know that they can ask themselves those questions, or is it the work involved in the beginning in setting those things out?
I mean, for me, like, obviously, I think everybody has a different perspective on it, but every single human is going to be doing the same thing, which is whatever the easiest path is, that is usually the one that people are inclined to take, because they have a lot of things that they're going to be filling up their schedules. And so why would you do something that takes maybe 3 times to 5 times to even 10 times longer to do. Even if it yields more success in the end, they're hesitant to start the process, in my experience.
Yeah, I think definitely the key thing here, and if I were to look at a new business owner, like somebody in their mid-20s, and they're strong enough to, and they have the courage to open a new business. And if I were to go and say, well, how do I coach up this person with experience and to think so that they don't make the same mistakes as people who are very well seasoned, have been doing it the same thing over and over the years? It's getting harder and harder to produce opportunities and to convert on them, right? As spaces become crowded with the same companies that provide the same service or products. Well, I would go and say, well, ask questions, ask things that, who are the people that would, like to be, who would like my service? What do they look like? What about the people who are not interested in my service yet, right? And how about the people who aren't interested right now, their future? And I think if you segment it this way, you won't have this one generalized strategy or even a plan, because I think most companies do have a plan. They don't have a strategy in place per se. They go, well, these leads come from this lead source, speed to lead, right? That's the whole thing that they think that that's their silver bullet, and they go, okay, well, as long as you connect with it within a few seconds with this messaging, you're going to get sales and conversions. Well, that's the same as just saying, well, if you have enough people, contacting you, you're going to make sales. Duh, that's going to happen, right? But it's not enough nowadays. You're missing a few other pieces. It's probably better to go and say, all those people that I communicate with that want to communicate with me this way, with my first message, with this idea, I'm going to get those people. But what about all those people that don't want it? I think that's a better way to take a look at that. And then you'll see opportunities there that you may not be really carefully thinking about. You're not critically thinking about those things. Then I think it just takes the courage to go through it and say, okay, well, now I have to create a different path for those types of audiences.
It's like, well, my audience has always loved ice cream. Like I've been serving them ice cream for years and years and years and years and years. And if they don't like ice cream, then I guess they're just not a person that wants to work with me. But it's like, okay, what about the people who are like lactose intolerant? Do you have another option for them? Well, why would we even have another option if we're just serving ice cream all the time? That's what I always think of. It's like you are trying to appeal to a particular type of audience, but especially, I mean, I don't know any business owners that are in their mid-20s. I don't know if you've talked to anyone in their mid-20s lately, but they're a different breed of mid-20s. I'll stop at that. But I think that people are getting more inclined to do an easier, more non-phone call route than people that were in the other, like, what you've been used to for the last 30 years in the home improvement industry. This industry is really specific on their audience, pretty much.
Yeah, a lot of industries are very much similar in the sense that they kind of approach it that way. So whether you're setting appointments, there's lots of industries that are kind of similar to that. It's considered purchase as opposed to maybe e-commerce where, it's very transactional. You're going to get people to make a purchase right away.
On that same vein though, like what's the best way for a company to reach out to their leads? Is there a best way?
There's multiple ways. And the best way is the way that your customer wants you to reach out. It sounds really simple when I give this response because it is. People just don't want to accept it. But if I were to ask a CEO, and I would say, you're a busy person, okay? You're a human, you're a consumer. And you probably know your customers very well, right? You're a homeowner as well, or you own a car, and all of these things. So you are the ideal customer profile, right? If you're selling a product like home services or solar or anything about a vehicle, because automobiles and stuff like that, anything for the home really. Same thing for insurance and mortgage. I mean, things that every person probably needs, like a grown up, an adult. And if you ask them and you say, if I called you 20 times in the next 3 days, would that convince you to do business with me?
I wasn't convinced on the 15th phone call, but that 16th one, man, I've really changed my mind.
And that's the interesting part, is because when I phrase this to CEOs or to leaders, they were like, well, I can't answer the phone. I don't have time for that. And you go, well, how do you think somebody could get a hold of you? Oh, they can email me or text me. But then you look at the strategy of the marketing or the call center, which again is driven from the top, I think. They're really focused on phone calls. And many companies continue to do that, and they force that issue. Now, you're not going to get rid of phone calls because there's an audience segment, right? And this is probably part of the podcast for the visual, for the people who are watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever, where we could probably put up something on the screen that kind of tells them, like, look, there's 16 different phenotypes or types of audiences. Some of them are okay with phone call, some of them are okay with text, some of them are okay with email, and some okay with chat, and some of them only want text, only want email, only want. So if you go down that list, and you'll probably come up with 15 or more audience segments. And now you go and say, oh my gosh, half of these people, audience types or lookalikes, don't want a phone call, because you go through those combination of things, right? And then it dawns on you that when you look at the company strategy, we're only interested in converting through phone, but then we're not addressing all those other people. So the worst of that is, and we've been talking about this for a while now, and I think we're one of the first companies, and at least for me, when I go into conferences and events, when I speak to people, I tell them, I ask them, have you considered that you're burning opportunities by contacting your leads and contacting them that fast, simply because the data will usually show that if you call 100 of these and you're only, let's say, converting on 10 to 20, the 80% of the people that will not answer your phone call, don't want a phone call, or cannot answer it because they're working. And if I'm working, let's say 9 to 5, 9 to 6, and then I have a life where maybe I have kids and I have to take care of stuff. So between the hours of 8 a.m. when I'm trying to get ready all the way to 6 or 7, okay, I'm doing things that I'm going to be too busy to answer a phone call. I don't want any phone calls. Okay. I may like your company. I don't know. I may be qualified, maybe not qualified, but I'm not going to be able to focus on this phone call, which usually takes anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes, depending on your process, because of my schedule. And so if you send me, you leave me voicemails and you constantly call me, there's a good group of those people that, one, they can't answer your calls because your call center hours are between that time, okay? And it might be too late to call them when I'm actually ready because it's already late. Then there's a segment of those people that are busy, and those people there's two types of people there. You burn the lead when I'm busy and I get annoyed because I'm busy with my day and you're blowing me up, right? And I may have just filled out a form yesterday or a couple hours ago, but my intention was to, first of all, I may not have been able to get what I want, like schedule an appointment, myself. So I didn't have the means to do that. I just wanted to get information. I don't know your internal process, and now you're blowing me up. So you're now burning your bridge with me. Okay. And then finally, the third, type of audiences will be those audiences that get cannibalized in terms of, because lead sellers will typically sell your lead info multiple times. Now you multiply the amount of phone calls. So if a business, who's very bent on calling you is going to do it, I've experienced it, testing it over the years, many, many times, over hundreds of companies, anywhere between 5 to 15 times per day. Now you multiply that by 3 to 5. I'm close to getting 50 to 75 phone calls. Now I'm upset. Okay. And if I ever pick up, I'm going to treat every single one of those people like, okay, I don't want to do business with you. So understanding that just as much as you want to convert with a phone call, and anytime somebody tells me now, we have to convert on a phone call because that's what we've been successful with, the same thing, okay, you can say that's where you've been failing, because every success has its failure, every positive has its negative. And I think if you only have a phone call strategy, or if you're bent on really forcing the issue that all your leads will convert on a phone call, you better be prepared to back that up with numbers, because otherwise you're lying, you're lazy, or you don't know, or you're just ignorant, or you're just trying to avoid, the tough questions. But if you can back it up and say the majority of the people that I get as leads are converting with a phone call every day, and I don't have to blow them up, and this is empirical evidence, then good for you. Then that means your audience segment is majority of the people who want phone calls. They don't want anything else, and your strategy blows up. But if you're one of these companies that go, I could use more appointments, I could use more sales, and I'm buying leads, but I'm not converting on them the way I've been doing it over the years, and it's mostly through phone calls, I think it's time to either quit your job. You're going to get fired at some point, because your upper management will probably figure out, like, you don't have a strategy. Like, that's who you are. You're a one trick pony. Or you're going to beat yourself, your head on a wall, because you're going to be shutting off lead sources here and there, trying to figure out the right mix. And that this is like I'm going to call out all the VPs and the marketing gurus out there, that if your strategy is turning off lead sources, and it's like, it's a formula that you think it is, like, oh, if it doesn't do well, but really you don't understand why that lead source is not producing. And your methodology is very easy to identify, which is you're just making a lot of phone calls. Okay. That really means it's time to get some help, or accept the fact that you don't really know your audience segmentation. You don't have a strategy. What you have is a plan. And you're not really doing any sort of marketing. What you're doing is you're budgeting.
Well, you're also acting mindlessly, which isn't helpful. The other thing I wanted to bring up, just as somebody who is like, techie, not saying you're not, you're definitely more techie than I am, is you're an iPhone user and the person is on Do Not Disturb. A text message will go through, a phone call will not. Secondly, you are maybe blowing up their phone. All they see is spam likely or an unknown number. So they're like, this 262, this 714, this 562 number keeps calling me over and over and over again. I don't know who this is, and I'm not going to pick it up. And unless you're leaving a voicemail and they listen to your voicemail, they're never going to know who you are. If you're sending a text message, you could say, hi, this is so-and-so company. At least they know that your company is reaching out to them. Otherwise, if they don't pick it up, they're not going to know anything. They're going to have no information on your company. We were talking about poor conversion rate. So let's say that this company's conversion rate is so bad that if they don't change something as soon as possible, they're going to be going out of business. So what's the number one thing that you recommend tackling to get a quick and positive change that they don't have to wait over a long period of time? It's like this, you'll notice a difference straight away. Let's just give a period of like a month. Is that even possible? And what should they tackle first?
Everything is possible, right? Given the amount of resources, and even in a month, so anything is possible. It's also possible that it's not enough time and there's not anything you can do. If a business is really at that level, then really I'm not sure if we can provide any sort of really good advice. What I could say is that in order to stop that from happening, and maybe you're like 2 to 3 months prior to that, or maybe 6 months, is being able to understand and accept that your current strategy and the things that other people might suggest, like us or experts or people who are very successful at this, will be unintuitive to you, right? Because if it was intuitive to you and if it made sense to you, you would have been doing it. Okay. So I think part of that is understanding that, accepting that, and then taking a deep breath and saying, okay, well, I need help and I need to employ something that I may not have done before. Okay. One of those things would be doing the things that are unintuitive to you, right? In that case, we've already given the example. If your main strategy has been phone calls, or text messages and emails that are constantly being like, you're constantly using promos and discounts to get people to essentially connect with you. Now, unless you're a restaurant with a following and it's like Taco Tuesday and everybody likes that and you're just kind of just letting people know, that may be a good strategy. And once in a while you tell them, hey, you get an additional $5 for every 10 tacos that you buy or whatever. And some company, and even Starbucks is very good at this because they have a following, right? And so they can come up with these promos and things on the app with the stars and redeeming those points. But if you don't have that, then the unintuitive would be, oh, I don't give people discounts or promos. What do my customers want? You ask this question, right? A good example of this, which, hopefully this'll be one of those shorts, would be, companies will ask, well, how do I provide a rebuttal to an objection regarding when people are saying, I just want a price over the phone, or can you just send me a quote or an estimate without ever getting more information from me or visiting me at my home or coming up with a very detailed meeting with all the bells and whistles and the options, because I don't have time for that. And when I thought about this, I thought, well, you could provide a response, but it's never going to be a good one, right? Or at least it's not going to work all the time. Most of the time it won't. Because if somebody wants to just essentially say, hey, I want this, and you can't provide it, and you tell them you can't do it, they're just going, like, what do you think is going to happen, right? The majority of those people are going to be like, well, forget about it. Like, I don't want to do business with you, or I'm not interested, right? So I thought to myself, well, what do people really respond to? I think it's when they feel it's limited, and when you don't get what you want, and you kind of have this value that you want to achieve. So I thought, well, instead of answering the question, why not highlight the fact that you're never going to get this information, and it's not like you don't want to provide to it, but if you keep waiting, okay, you're going to keep wasting your time. And this is an alternative to wasting your time. So you're basically providing an alternative, right, for it, and saying, you're not going to get this information from anyone else. Have you considered doing this instead, which is not doing your project at all and just waiting when you're ready, or maybe just going on Google and figuring that out and not getting the exact thing that you may have already done. So
he's referring to a ballpoint, like a ballpark estimate, by the way. I don't know if you actually said that at the beginning, but yeah. we had this conversation like days ago anyway, where he was like, yeah, if someone keeps asking for like a ballpark or how much does your project cost, yeah, go to Google. Like, if you're coming and asking an expert, then you're not looking to do your research. You're trying to see if this person is going to give you what you want, how you want it. And maybe you want something different and you don't even realize it until you talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. Yeah.
So I think it's part of the I would say, getting people to think creatively and to try to solve problems upstream. Now, it's unintuitive to people because they're like, well, you didn't give me a response that answers that question or is better than what I would usually say. Well, sometimes it's not about answering the question, right? It's about maybe living in that person's mind. Like, oh, I was different. That this is the only company that was really true to like many, many years ago when I was on the phone and I had this experience, and people would insist on saying, well, I can't do business with you unless you give me a ballpark price or an estimate over the phone, and I'm going to hang up if you don't. And I would just call them out on it in the most polite, respectful way. And I say, maybe you're not really serious about this project, because how many people have you spoken to already? And they were like, well, I called 3 companies and I'm going to delete you afterwards because you can't get me. You're telling me the same thing as everybody else is. Like, like at some point, how many more companies are you going to call? Because if all the companies that you called in the beginning were all the reputable ones and you're not getting what you want, maybe you should accept the fact that you're not going to get what you want, and no one's going to give it to you that way, because that's not the best way to do it. Have you tried going on Google? And yeah, but it's like, it's like, I can't trust whatever. So how do you know you can trust what I tell you or anybody if it's over the phone? It's the same thing as Google. So maybe just wait. We've been around for all this time, and, we really would rather, not give you the information, because you'll probably keep waiting for it. And when you're ready, it's actually just a phone call away when you're ready to actually accept that this is the way you're going to get the information. But I hope you don't waste any more of your time. And I would say half the time the people will be like, they would understand that, because I'm almost like, I got no skin in the game here. You know what I mean? Like, you can do whatever you want, but at least I've told you, like, you just continue wasting your time. Now that's a phone call. And I think with text messages and emails, you can almost nudge people and prime them initially and say, this is why you should not call us or not try to get these quotes because, and letting people know that, because one thing I've also thought about, when I really think about these things is there's a particular audience segment that they don't like you telling them not to do. So if you actually go and, again, you just need to be creative and kind of understand who your audiences are, but it's not going to be intuitive. And if you try to seek the advice of, with other experts in your field that are encountering the same problem, and then you look at what they're doing and it looks very similar to what you're doing, and this happens, right? In many spaces, they kind of have these groups and they all talk to each other and they, hey, I've been doing this and been working on, and then they try it, it doesn't work. Here's why. It's because they're all still dealing with the same problem. And what's intuitive to that group, to all of them, is not going to help solve something that will be answered with something that's unintuitive.
If everybody is making a snowman and your snowman is yellow, maybe somebody's like, oh, why? But they're going to remember you.
Yeah, I think the remembering part, you make a very simple point, is when it really becomes very easy for companies to stand out. And maybe this is your question about I've got 30 days, stand out. If you stand out and you're not doing what other people are doing, your competitors, maybe even people that you know that may not be competitors to you, and you say, they're not doing this, and I'd be the only one offering this, you would stand out. People would take notice for that, because in a sea of X's, right? And you're the only one with the O. If you think about it, you've got 10 X's, you're all X's. If you're one of those X's, even if you're like a bigger X or a,
Come
but you
on,
still
Vic,
look like
you know you
X.
want to use my pea snowman analogy.
But mathematically, think about it. 10 X's and you're one of those X's. You own, and the consumer, mathematically, you own 10% of that person's mind because there's 10 X's. If I'm a 0 or an O and there are 9 other X's, okay, I own 50% of the audience consideration, because there's all the ones that are O, which is me, and all the ones that are X. So now it is higher than the 10% just because you're standing out. So with regards to when people might think, oh, that's a mathematical way of empirically proving that standing out, okay, is not just like a term. Mathematically, you will have a higher probability of conversion, by taking that unintuitive strategy of standing out and offering something or doing something that everybody else or the majority of the people aren't doing. But that takes guts, right? It takes guts. It takes, a person with know-how. And again, probably somebody who, you don't have to be the best at what you do. You just need to know how to get that help and then execute on it. That's the reason why, people will seek services and solutions, because they're smart enough to know that I need to surround myself with even smarter people and those people. But to continue the same strategy, the same approach and methodology, and maybe you're just changing, like even in your example, yes, everybody's building a snowman, but maybe I build a snowman, but it's in yellow, right? It could still be a snowman, right? And but it is a different one. So I would say it's like the more extreme example of that would be everybody's building a snowman and you're building, I don't know, an angel or again, a reindeer.
You're building a golden statue.
Yeah. Something that will just be like, oh, that's really different. That's like, that just, that just stands out. Right. And I like what you said, even if the feedback might be negative, because not everybody's going to like what you're doing. Understanding that if somebody gave you feedback and they say, oh, I don't like that, you're probably still better off with that because you can respond to that than people ghosting you or just not saying anything at all, because that means that you've been ignored.
What's the number one car insurance that you think of? If you think of a car insurance, which the first one that comes to your brain?
Progressive.
Yeah? Progressive. And why is that?
Because it's because, Flow, there's a brand obviously there, but also, I like the fact that their thing is it's going to save me time because they give me all the quotes.
For me, it's Geico because they have a talking lizard. See, I'm more of a simpleton.
I mean, I think, like, again, like those companies really compete to try to stand out. State Farm has their own thing as well, right? And I think this is how you in industries that we work in, they should learn from that. Like, okay, like we need to be more creative. We need to put more resources. Your first question was like, well, how do we get more leads? It's about also understanding that in industries where you're trying to get all the homeowners, all the people who will buy solar because they're homeowners too. And then homeowners also buy cars, right? So now you've covered a triumvirate of products and services. Homes don't change hands as much unless it's a distressed area, right? And it's really weird that marketing managers and VPs would be so bent on like buying more leads when if you've gone through 5-10 years in the business and you've purchased all those in your area, the likelihood that you would have purchased all those leads already is very high because there's only a finite amount of homes and homeowners. And even if they changed hands, they're not going to change hands at the rate in which you would have to double or triple the names in your database, right? You would have to go to other cities or states to expand your business. But within that area, if there's 1,000 homes there, there's in all likelihood 1,000 homeowners. If you have that territory and then you look at your database and you got 4,000 that you've purchased, it's probably because there's duplicates in there, right? So it's really interesting how managers think and they go continue to put budgets on buying the same leads in the same markets when they could have started in the beginning and said, you know what, I'm going to put some of this money on content and creative and the branding and the ability to go and stand out and build extraordinary experiences outside of my competition because there's only so much of these leads.
Yeah, and that leads right into like rehash and follow up. And that's one of the things that I feel like we're beating everybody we work with over the head with. And they're just like, we don't have time to follow up. We don't have time to do rehash. And we actually came up with like a solution that we're like so amazingly excited about. It's to the point of when we're talking to people about it on meetings, our microphones are peaking. Like it starts to like cut out because we're like yelling. We're really, really excited about it. And so, yeah, tell them about the rehash and follow-up secret sauce.
Well, I don't know if it's a secret sauce, but I mean, in our system, we are the first to have, and this is really the truth. And we're the first to come up with text and email disposition. So in industries that use call centers and stuff like that, they're mostly reliant on call dispositions and CRM dispositions. We've added that to our feature stack, and now it's part of a default in our system where you can disposition text and emails, right? So you know what's happening. Now, the interesting part about that, for us, the innovation came when they disposition, there's automation through machine learning AI that will actually follow up. So if you put down, and we should probably put like a demo of some sort, or we can, actually show people that they put the disposition, they put their notes, because typically that's what they do. They'll say, hey, this person's going on a vacation. They couldn't schedule the appointment. We'll have to follow up with them in a couple of weeks, and they're probably looking for other quotes. Boom, done. I move on to my next caller or my next text. But our system, right? So Chow will basically follow up with bespoke, personalized text and email saying, you went on a vacation to Hawaii. I hope you're doing well. It's very carefully thought out, and say, I know you were looking for other quotes. We can give you all those quotes. What about calling us or scheduling the appointment, kind of giving that option. And there's no agent that needs to remember that. The system will automatically do this very personalized, intent-based approach automatically. Okay, so the automation is not really the crowning jewel of that. It's the way we built it, where we said this automation is more effective and efficient because it relies on information that call center agents or salespeople or HR recruiters will put down, and based on their experience with this interaction, and then it will create this bespoke messaging, for that person, for a follow-up, for a rehash, for a revisit, for anything with like future touch points. And that actually helps with all kinds of things. Like if you're experiencing Twilio blocking your messages and connecting to spam, it's because you're doing these blasts. Whereas with our methodology, we're doing it organically, right? We're really going and saying, well, look, if you know some information about this lead or this prospect, put it down, and then the machine learning, the AI will essentially help in following up, creating these messaging, and it will respond until such time that it will schedule the appointment. And then at that point, you can decide what you want to do with it. You want somebody else to take over, or like an agent take over, or a human taking over that conversation.
He's almost underselling it a little bit. Like you guys, you do have to try our demo, and we're going to have like some kind of a keyword associated with it, just even if you don't want us involved with it, so that way you can run through and see how amazing this thing works. And it's not even just like, oh, you visited Hawaii, I hope you had a great trip. Like, this AI is so specific. It's like, oh yeah, I saw that you went to Japan, right? You know, did you end up visiting Tokyo Tower? Or I heard that you were going to Kyoto. Like, did you end up going to like the main capital? It really gets nitty gritty. And when I was testing it, it was almost spooky. I was like, I can't believe that it goes this far when it's talking about different locations. And it's just really intuitive and interesting, even more interesting than talking to like representatives sometimes. As long as you leave really good notes, our AI can riff off of that really, really well. I guess I should call them our humans, humane. We need to work out how to say that stupid thing out loud, because I need to know how to.
I think we just said humans, but like it was like people confuse it when we say, well, the other humans are the contact
humans
center.
With AI capital ice. It looks really good on text.
Yeah, exactly. When you text it, which is really what our specialization has been on word and reading, but I think it, like underselling it is. I really don't feel like this is for everybody, to be honest with you. I don't think that. With our strategy and our culture, we want to work with the companies who want to dominate, and the people who want to dominate, who are serious about it. That's not everyone, right? So it really means that there are only certain types of companies that would be serious about that, and most of those companies know that there is effort that needs to be made when putting this together, and it's unintuitive to them, and it can be scary for them. So. Absolutely. I do think it's amazing. We wouldn't put so much of our time and effort over the last 6 months, really building towards this, deploying it, testing it, succeeding with it if we didn't believe in it. The thing is that it's just not going to be something for everyone. I think that's a key thing. Like the things that we preach, we practice the same way. We know that there's many companies out there who just want control, right? Like they would rather just try to, again, put lipstick on a pig, or this approach about, just kind of like going one level up to their existing strategy because they're so afraid that they don't know what's going to happen with this. Dominance is also, synchronous and synonymous to courage and being brave and being able to go and have that pride in what you do and confidence in what you do. And not everybody will have that. People will say that they're confident about what they do things, but really that's vain, that's veiled, I would say that's veiled in their distrust for innovation, or their ignorance on terms of these. But you don't have to be. Like if you think that there's a better way, it's just not something intuitive to you. Really, the first step in keeping that ignorance temporary is by experimenting. Yeah,
we're going to be having Vic AI on this next time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure he'll answer just as good as you. I mean, based on what you're saying.
I don't know if I could. I will say that, I've resigned to the that I've kind of have this point of view, like fatalistic point of view, that at some point, the artificial intelligence masters will just take over, and I'm just here to enjoy the time. But I don't think I could be better than. I mean, there's certain things that artificial intelligence will probably be very difficult to overcome.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, I mean, I'm getting back to conversion again, because we can go off on the AI thing for forever. But is there any part of the conversion process, talking about the lead collection to converting on leads, to the demo, to install to sale to reviews, is there any part of that process that you just think AI is never going to be able to tackle by itself?
Yeah, physical installation of a project, because that requires an installer or an expert or a technician coming into the home and actually doing the work, right? But I think with regards to communication, there's absolutely nothing down the road. As computing power goes up, machine learning and the ability to do things is directly proportional to that. And you see things with NVIDIA, being one of the largest companies, not the largest company on the planet now, where the computing power is just amazing. It's just they're building these chips that could really just storage and power in terms of computing and calculations, and the ability to go and handle those things have just skyrocketed, exponentially. So there's none. Even voice, that latency will go down, and at some point you have to think about how there's going to be a need for people, but it's assisted. It's assisted service, meaning there are people who would want to go and talk to a human, but it's not embedded in the solving of the problem, because machine learning and artificial intelligence undoubtedly will be able to solve those more accurately across the board, aggregate, versus a human agent, right? That's going to be embedded in the visceral need for emotional, but another human on the phone. But with the computing power going up, very soon there's going to be very hard to discern, even if you're speaking to or chatting with or typing or corresponding with a machine versus, or a bot versus a human, because it's just gaining those strides in being able to understand people even better than people understanding people, because that's inherently a human flaw. So I think it's going to mean a few things. One, you either embrace that and get ahead of it before your competitors do, or you're going to be left behind and then you're going to get eaten up, or you may just get frustrated with it. And at that point you may go, at that point when everybody's using it, because that's going to be like that inflection point, then you go retro, or the only company that doesn't employ this, and maybe at that point you'd stand out. But right now, I think everybody's racing towards that and understanding it. And then there's a lot of companies that are just they don't have the bandwidth. It's not that they don't want that. They have people who are resistant to that change, right? They're resistant to that. They don't know that. They're afraid of it. They think it's going to take over their roles. But the long answer to that short question is there's nothing that AI won't be able to go and do better than humans in terms of the business communication and solving for problems, and over time.
If you are one of those people who are kind of not convinced, not wanting to engage with AI, not wanting to interact with it, I feel you, especially as an artist myself, when I'm seeing AI generated art and the general population not being able to discern AI art from, something that an artist has created, especially people who have gone to school for it and stuff. It is really disheartening to be like, wow, this is really getting good. Yikes, I'm in danger. But I want you to think about it just like how we've talked about before. This is a way that you can use your tools ahead of time, what you are given, in order to make yourself even better. Because think about when the first personal computers came out. You're like, well, I don't want to use a personal computer because, like, what if something goes wrong with like my power and all of a sudden all of my documents are gone? My paper documents, they're always going to be right here. And I'm an excellent document filer. I went to document filing school and I was the star student. Yeah, you were, it was, and now it's now, and it sucks. And it sucks to have to go that way. But I'm telling you right now, you can delay it for a little bit, but 5 years from now, if you're still hesitant to use things that are AI, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because it's going to be implemented in a lot more than you think. Even if it's not lead conversion, it's going to be a part of your life, whether you like it or not. I mean, maybe I'm overstating it, but that's what I think.
One advice I would give to the people who want to try it without and mitigating their risks, right, is to, like, if you're chatting with us, for example, we would go and say, look, don't touch anything that you're currently doing that you're doing well at. So for example, if your speed to lead is really good with another platform and you're cruising along that way, contact us and we'll go through all the ones that you're not converting on. Like literally everything that you're not converting on, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of leads that you're not converting on. And then we do an A/B test and we push those through our system with our creativity, with the features that we have. And then you basically have that compete against each other, or at least, not even competing against each other, but maybe saying, look, I don't want to spend any more resources on my call center or my people because I don't have time for that. But if you run it through here, what do I get? Like kind of squeezing, the juice more from those particulars you've already purchased that you've not succeeded in. And I would say there's not been one example this past year where we've done that and the customer has said, yeah, it didn't work, because every single time we had produced results, or not we, but it's, the system produced results because it was unintuitive, it was different, right? It was creative, and it basically converted on those audience segments that they were just not converting on in the first place. So that would be one way to do things that would be a good, I would say, yeah, dipping your toe. Yeah, thank you. Exactly. And saying, how do I have very little to no risk? And these are already things that I've already paid for. You'll pay for our service, but I won't have to buy more leads. These are the ones that we're not converting on. We're probably still calling them. Is there a better way? And then you test that. And then you obviously will have all the reporting and the analytics. I think one thing to remember, however, is that once you go on this particular path, it does reveal a lot of holes in your system. And so we end up kind of uncovering even more, dirt, like as we go along. But as long as you you have a right attitude about it and you go, well, I'm really here to I want to provide better experience. I want to dominate. I want to get my customers a better chance of connecting with us and getting awareness. Then you become somebody else, right? You become this person that's upgraded. And so you're less likely to be a slave to the AI piece, where later on it might be just too templative and everybody's already kind of used it. So now businesses are just selling it this way. You'd be the person, it's not always the case, but there are many times when early adopters benefit significantly. There's also many situations where early adopters, don't benefit, but there are many use cases. And I think for the adoption of AI, and the things that we talk about, omni-channel approach, the early adopters, and the reason they continue to use it is because they've gained so much from it. But it is, of course, diminishing returns.
We're talking to you, Mark Zuckerberg. Your AI rooms are weird. You need to get better with your meta. They're really doing well.
It's
okay, however, now. It's doing a lot better now. But when they first put it out, I was just like, wow, I know you're taking a step out onto the ledge, but you go back to your hut and workshop it a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that they took the strategy putting it on Instagram. I think they're going to learn more.
I go to that thing every single day on Instagram. I'm constantly playing with their AI generation. And if you don't know what we're talking about, it's like Meta Imagine. If you ever want to open up like a Instagram photo generatives thing and just play around with the AI, it's really, really fun and interesting. Although don't ask for anything for like, make Mark Zuckerberg do this, because it says, I can't do anything image related with Mark Zuckerberg or any Meta employees, but you could do that with anybody else on the planet. I actually thought that was a great little bit of code they put in there.
For Facebook leads, because we've been the first, honestly, in many industries to have that integration and that speed to lead on Facebook without having to give agents like the passwords, and they have access to that. Now with OpenAI, right? It's even more. It's even easier, I would say, to go and really create bespoke experiences for Facebook users or for Facebook prospects within that environment, because Facebook does share, if the settings are correct, like you have the audience lookalikes, you have demographic, you have gender, you have all of these other really people that would share these particulars,
They are the best at that. They still are.
Yeah. And I think that's the part of the puzzle that, if you haven't, in spaces like home services solar, I think they're starting to get to grind that out with cars, with the automobile industry, but with home services and solar in particular, and even with, insurance does it really well, but with home services and solar, you really can leverage the data, the enhanced data on there, and really talk to those people in the way in which they really, because you're leveraging both the Facebook, interface, which, people are like, wildly loyal to that if they're like clicking on things and looking at ads and stuff, but also with the artificial the machine learning, now you're really getting them to talk in that environment. That's why it's so easy for Meta to understand their consumers, and they're still, one of the biggest companies in the planet, obviously, because they know that. They know their audiences and they're able to leverage those. I think it's about time for home services and solar to get away a lot from the Facebook ads where you're doing it and taking it to a landing page and then you're going to wait for an email or a text or a phone call. Yes, they've improved on those, especially with the embedding and iframing it into, that's changed now. But with Facebook forms and stuff, don't forget, like, that's actually a faster way of communicating with people. The caveat is that the reason most people don't use that is because they think they can't convince the person enough on the messenger chat, right? And that's only because they're not the experts at it. What they want to do is they want to keep you on that addiction to, like, hey, this works. But that only works because your lead seller, who's doing that, that's their process. They don't want you to screw up their process because they also want to keep you on that hamster wheel.
And
they don't want you to
when
get
it comes
off.
to algorithm-based advertising, the platform, let's just say Facebook, but even like Instagram, TikTok, Google, all these guys, what they do is if you're not redirecting them back to your landing page and you are keeping them on your platform longer, engaging with you, they're going to bump you up. They're going to be like, great, this company is working with us. Let's show this to more people. So consider continuing conversation on there. Like, you can do it. You don't need to bring them back to the landing page or the website that just shows me countertops with a promo code. I've seen countertops with a promo code my whole life. I don't care. Just let me talk to you on Facebook. Got something good, then tell me about it.
It works because there's some people who are serious enough to go and do it, and then you have to convince them. But overwhelmingly, the amount of resources being spent on Facebook ads that lead to landing pages and stuff like that, you'll just see that the conversion isn't that great. For businesses, it's intuitive for them because they look at the ROIs and they go, well, yeah, even if I have to go to 10,000 of these leads, as long as I sell 100, I've made my money 2, 3, 4, 5 times over. I'm fine with that. What they don't realize is the opportunity cost on the 9,900 that didn't convert. And you could actually break that apart and say, well, these are the 9,900 that I should be driving, through a storyline and being able to connect with them on Messenger and Facebook so that I could nurture them as opposed to just treating them like a lead, because you can't do the retargeting anymore on Messenger as you would, before. They've changed that, but you could communicate with them within that 24-hour period and kind of creating a profile, then creating them to go and say, hey, if you're interested, do this. If you're not, follow us. And then here's the content. And now what you've done is gain followers and subscribers that you would probably not do. You'd have them in the lead as a lead, but the drawback to that is that if you burn them, they won't do business with you. Right? You've pushed them there. But if you already know, again, audience segments, which you talked about in the beginning, that's the first question, you're able to leverage those. And those are the people that will actually stay on. They're not going to be purchasers just like they are now in your CM, just like stagnating there, or like they're just late in, they're just, but they will be people that would comment, share, like, on your posts. And then now you just build through that content so that when they are ready, you're top of mind.
Also, this is a reminder to check your Facebook Messenger inbox. There's leads in there because these guys are like, they see an ad for you and not everybody's intuitive enough to actually follow your ad where they want you to go. I can't tell you how many people had like 60 different live leads sitting in their Facebook inbox that they didn't even know it was there. And if you work with channel automation, we can actually alert you when you have those, if you don't want to go there and look at it manually.
We don't want everybody to do that, because we want the customers that we want the customers who are already with us to succeed. If everybody does it, then we'll lose some of that dominance.
Oh, you're right. We're just kidding.
But yeah, I think when we talk about this, we're talking about this in terms of ideation and coming up with commonsensical things. But I still feel it's very unintuitive. That these are the things like top 10 things that people, they should be doing, but they're not doing. And really, and I think it's a good way to assess, whether or not you've got a strategy or a plan, or if it's really an attitude problem on your side, or a personality type on your side, or maybe a bandwidth issue. You just don't have time to do it yourself or figure it out or learn it. You don't have time to go and spend to learn it and then execute on it, because you're busy. So seeking the help of professionals and other people will expedite that. As long as, again, you're strategic in your moves and you mitigate some of your risk, but you're also open that you're not going to be the expert. Somebody else will be. You're paying this person to be the expert, and you got to let them do their thing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Get your money's worth. That's going to be it for us today. Whether you love or hate what we've talked about, we do want to hear from you. So make sure to give us a shout out at hello@channelautomation.com. Also, follow our YouTube, subscribe to our podcast. We always are putting out stuff like this. We put out shorts as well if you don't want to listen to the long form. We have them on LinkedIn. We've got them on Facebook. We're kind of all over the place. So make sure you find us pretty much anywhere that you're going to be going online. We're going to be there, lingering in the shadows, doing our thing. And as always, keep your lead conversion high.